Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony, the empire of love and power. What if I told you that a single love story, born from war, ambition, and destiny, changed the entire course of human history? This isn't a fairy tale. This is the story of Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony, three people who dared to rule the ancient world and lost everything to each other. A queen who wanted to save her empire, a general who wanted to be a god, a warrior who chose love over Rome. Their names became legends, but their story, their real story, is far more powerful than myth. A world divided. Rome was the superpower, unstoppable, wealthy, and ruthless. But beneath the marble and might, it was breaking apart from the inside. Civil wars, betrayals, ambition that devoured everything. And across the Mediterranean, Egypt, the jewel of the Nile, stood proud but fragile. Its temples still whispered of gods and pharaohs, but its future hung by a thread. At its heart stood a young queen, Cleopatra VII. She was only 18 when she took the throne. Educated, multilingual, and politically ruthless, she was no ordinary ruler. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, and she would do anything to protect her kingdom from Rome's shadow. When two worlds collided. In 48 BCE, Julius Caesar sailed into Alexandria chasing his enemy, Pompey. But when he arrived, he found not victory, but chaos. Egypt was torn apart by civil war between Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIII. Cleopatra had been forced into exile, betrayed by her own family. But she had a plan, and Caesar was her chance. According to legend, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's palace rolled up in a carpet. When that carpet unfurled before the most powerful man in the world, outstepped the most dangerous woman he would ever meet. And in that moment, two empires met. Caesar saw in her not just beauty, but brilliance. She spoke 7 languages. She understood politics better than most senators. And she had something Caesar could never resist: vision. Together they became a force of nature, the queen and the conqueror. Caesar helped Cleopatra reclaim her throne. Cleopatra gave Caesar what Rome never could, the East and a legacy of gods. Soon after, she gave birth to a son, Caesarion, the living link between Rome and Egypt. For Cleopatra, it was a dream of balance, East and West united under her child. For Caesar, it was legacy, a vision of himself as more than a man. When Caesar returned to Rome, he brought Cleopatra with him. She lived in a golden villa on the Tiber, dazzling the Roman elite and terrifying them at the same time. To many senators, she represented everything dangerous about Caesar's ambitions: monarchy, wealth, and foreign influence. And then came the Ides of March, the fall that shook the world. On March 15, 44 BCE, Caesar entered the Senate surrounded by men he trusted. They surrounded him, 23 betrayals carved into history. The Republic was avenged, they said, but what they didn't know was that they had just unleashed the storm that would destroy it. In Egypt, Cleopatra waited for word that would never come. In a single moment, Caesar's reign ended. Her protector, her ally, her son's father, gone. And in Rome, power shifted like sand in the desert. 2 men stepped forward to claim Caesar's legacy: Octavian, his adopted son, and Mark Antony, his most loyal general. Cleopatra watched from afar. And when Rome began to burn again, she made her move. Enter Mark Antony. Mark Antony was everything Caesar wasn't. Where Caesar was cold and calculating, Antony was fire and thunder. A soldier's general, fearless, magnetic, alive. He had fought beside Caesar and carried his memory like a flame. When he called Cleopatra to Tarsus to answer for her loyalty, she didn't send envoys. She came herself, and she made sure the world would never forget her entrance. She sailed up the river Cydnus on a golden barge, sails of purple silk billowing in the wind, oars made of silver. She was dressed as Isis, goddess of life. When Antony saw her, he laughed and fell under her spell. But Cleopatra wasn't there to entertain him. She was there to survive. And together, they found what had been missing since Caesar's fall: purpose. The lovers who defied Rome. Cleopatra and Antony became inseparable. They lived, ruled, and dreamed together in Alexandria. He gave her protection and legitimacy in the eyes of Rome. She gave him the resources and power he needed to challenge Octavian. They weren't just lovers. They were partners in empire. But in Rome, Octavian began his greatest war. Not on the battlefield, but in people's minds. He painted Antony as a traitor. He told the Roman people that their great general had been bewitched by a foreign queen, a woman who wanted to enslave Rome. It was brilliant propaganda, and it worked. Soon, Antony's image in Rome was shattered. Every victory he had won was forgotten, replaced by rumors of debauchery, madness, and obsession. And Octavian waited until the moment to strike. The Battle of Actium, 31 BCE. Cleopatra and Antony's combined fleet met Octavian's forces off the coast of Greece. Hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of men. It was the final showdown between two visions of the world. When Cleopatra's ships began to withdraw, Antony made a fatal choice. He left the fight to follow her. The commander turned away, and they lost. Actium broke their power. Octavian now ruled the world. But for Antony and Cleopatra, it was not the end. The last kingdom. They returned to Egypt, wounded, desperate, but defiant. In Alexandria, they built walls and gathered what allies they had left. But Octavian was coming, unstoppable. When the city fell, Antony believed Cleopatra was gone. But she lived. Her guards carried the wounded general to her chambers, and there, in the quiet shadows of their lost empire, they met one last time. The fall of a queen. When Octavian entered Alexandria, he expected a broken woman. He found her, a queen, radiant in gold. He planned to parade her through the streets of Rome, a trophy of his triumph. Cleopatra chose her fate, one final moment with Antony, and when she returned to her quarters, she made her final choice. According to legend, she took a small basket of figs, and hidden within, a venomous asp. And the last pharaoh of Egypt was gone. When Octavian found her, he was furious. She had denied him the victory of humiliation. But history had already chosen its victor. Rome conquered Egypt. Octavian became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, and the Republic fell, just as Caesar once foresaw. 3 lives, 1 legacy, Cleopatra, Caesar, and Antony. 3 souls bound by ambition, passion, and tragedy. Caesar dreamed of reshaping the world, and it cost him everything. Antony dreamed of ruling it, and lost it. Cleopatra dreamed of saving her kingdom, and paid with her life. Together, they did what no empire could. They became immortal. Their story survived empires, languages, and centuries. Cleopatra, in a world ruled by men, refused to be silent. She used intelligence, diplomacy, and strategy to protect her people. Julius Caesar, born from nothing, built a name so powerful that it outlived the Republic. Mark Antony, torn between loyalty and love, became the symbol of every human who has ever chosen the heart over the crown. They remind us that power always comes with a price. More than 2,000 years have passed, and yet we still talk about them. Empires fall, monuments crumble, but stories never die.